his question and answer session there alongside General Kane, though Secretary Hegseth took most of the questions. David Rowe, let's talk through some of what was said here. First of all, again, on this question of regime change, saying again and again there is a new regime. There's not a new regime. You just said it a minute ago. It is the son of the previous supreme leader who is a hardened IRGC extremist. He is in charge right now. So that part is not true. And it seems the position of the Pentagon right now, and he said it out loud, did the Secretary, this has been a decisive military victory, a devastating military defeat for Iran that then brought them to the negotiating table. What they're negotiating over right now is a 10-point plan that comes from Iran. Every one of those 10 points is obviously skewed and heavily favors Iran, and the president has called that workable. So what do you make of the thesis or the theory that they're putting out there, perhaps the spin, that the reason we got this 2-week ceasefire is because the United States basically pummeled Iran into coming to the table?
I'll leave it to viewers to make their own decisions, but I would disagree. I think there were multiple false statements and claims that Secretary Hegseth made. And I look back at, we've been watching each of these press conferences together. And, when originally at the beginning of the war, it was, here are the objectives that Secretary Hegseth himself talked about: destroy their missile stockpile and their defense industrial base. The latest intelligence assessment is that only a third of Iran's missiles have been destroyed. Another third might be buried, but there's still many thousands of missiles and drones left. Destroy Iran's Navy. I think that's fair. They talked about the overwhelming number of surface ships destroyed. They did not destroy the Navy or Iran's ability to project power in the Strait of Hormuz, and that is the key victory for Iran here. Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz. There's talk of a toll for Iran that could generate as much as $100 billion a year for the regime. That's the equivalent to the total amount of oil sales Iran had last year. They can rebuild all these things. Permanently deny Iran nuclear weapons forever. No. The uranium is still there. They can watch it from satellites. We watched it before from satellites. So I don't see that goal is achieved. And he didn't mention this in his own summary today, but number 4, this is the beginning of the war. Terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region. Not achieved. And again, my broader takeaway is this Trump approach of Trump-Hegseth approach of take the gloves off. We're not going to be politically correct. I think the threat to destroy Iran's civilization backfired massively for the United States and its the world views of it, and that we don't need allies. We could not retake the Strait of Hormuz because we did not have European ships backing us. We should have created a broad international coalition, as George H.W. Bush did in Kuwait, and they didn't follow that approach, and we were not strong enough to take the Strait of Hormuz or completely defeat Iran.
And John, the Secretary is saying eventually we will leave the Strait of Hormuz to the rest of the world. This is their problem now. He also notably said that the President of the United States chose mercy, suggesting he decided not to, this is the quote from the President, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. That post that he made yesterday, Secretary Hegseth saying the President chose mercy, decided not to wipe out an entire civilization and to allow Iran to come to the table and negotiate.
I mean, just a ridiculous assessment there from the Secretary of Defense. I mean, the president's post yesterday was met with fierce pushback from world leaders, from the Pope. We know that Trump was lobbied all day by other heads of state telling him to back off, including those from the Gulf, saying if you go after them like this, we know we're going to get the brunt of the retaliation. This is putting us all at great risk. And the president seemed eager to latch on, though, to this proposal from the Pakistani mediators that he realized he had boxed himself into a corner. He backed himself into a corner and needed some way out and some way to declare victory. And he's doing that today in a series of phone calls with reporters. But as David just said, the Strait of Hormuz now is under more of Iran's control than it was at the start of this war. That inherently makes this a defeat for the United States. Yes, they inflicted some damage on the regime, no doubt. But, yes, they killed off some specific names, but it's the same institutions. It's the same, larger structure. It's still in charge. Nothing has improved for the Iranian people, at this point in the war. And David, there are also huge gaps to close here in the next 2 weeks during this ceasefire. We know talks will begin this weekend in Pakistan. The president's saying they may have some agreement on uranium. We haven't heard the Iranians say that. And that's just one of many obstacles that remain.
There's no progress, I think, on uranium at all. And I was just struck. I want to actually salute General Kane. The first thing he talked about was the 13 service members who gave their lives for our country. And I just salute him, and he is seen as a serious leader. I think there's questions about how much he warned President Trump as they approached the war. The New York Times reporting the dangers of the Strait of Hormuz, what could go wrong. And I don't think that was maybe made clear enough. You have a duty when you're in that room, in the Situation Room, to talk about worst-case scenarios. So I think he needs to answer questions on that. And just on Hegseth, and I'm a nerd reporter, I really like to stick to facts, but he just said, just these false claims at the beginning of the press conference. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this president. I think Ronald Reagan and supporters of Ronald Reagan and FDR would disagree, but it's the politicization of our military and using that podium when Americans have just died and hundreds have been wounded. Iran, utterly incapable of resisting. False. Again, they basically took the world energy market hostage, and we couldn't stop that. Iran had no air defense system, except for the ones that shot down 2 American planes in the last few days. And then again, this statement over and over again, it's a new regime. It's just patently false.
And Willie, David's right that it's the politicization of the military, but also, once again, taking this military operation and draping it in the cloak of like a religious operation. So many references to God blessing this and the divine power and the like, which I think makes a lot of people uncomfortable and also would seem to play right into the hands of the theocracy in Iran, because that's how they view the world. And that just frames this as a black and white, good versus evil sort of crusade, if you will. And it's only going to harden their resolve.
Yeah, and that contrast that David talks about every time we have one of these briefings where Secretary Hegseth comes out, his first duty is to shower President Trump with praise. And then you have a more solemn approach from General Kane talking about the people who've lost their lives and the consequences of war. And as you saw there in that room filled with friendly media, Secretary Hegseth gets one adversarial question from ABC News and goes into a complete meltdown and points to another reporter. We're going to be all over this story. New updates coming at the top of the hour. Morning Joe's coming right back.